So the emotional expression on the other person's face may show agreement or disagreement about the infant's actions. So the infant will check with its mother to see if it's okay to do this, if it's an uncertain type of thing. There's a certain point, a certain age where you might look at your mother and your mother frowns, but you go ahead and do it anyway. But that's part of development, I guess. Intersubjective object evaluation. Subjects presented with another person's face that is looking towards or away from an object evaluates the objects that are looked at as more valuable than those that do not receive much attention from others. And if there's an emotional expression on the face, you get a stronger effect. So if I'm looking with pleasure at some particular object, then you will tend to look at that object as having that value.
And this is all subconscious level.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't. Subconscious. Here, the Simon effect is very similar to Adele Diamond's discussion of hearts and flowers, the hearts and flowers experiment the other day. This is an experiment done by Simon, and the way it's set up is this. It's a traditional stimulus-response task. Participants respond to different colors, pressing a button with the left hand if they see the color blue, pressing with the right hand if they see the color red. So the colors are flashed in front of you, but they can be flashed on the right or the left. Right? They are asked to ignore, the subjects are asked to ignore the location of the color, which are this color is displayed to the right or the left. But it turns out that if there's an incongruence, there's a mismatch of the right versus the left between the color location and the hand used to respond. So if, for example, I have to press with the right hand for red, but the red is on the left visual field, then there's increased reaction times. It takes longer for me to push the button. So simply if it's on the opposite side to the hand I'm using to press the button, it takes longer for me to respond. When a subject is asked to respond to just one color with one hand, there is no conflict and there's no effect on reaction time. So if I tell you, press a button whenever you see red, it doesn't matter whether the red is on the left or the right, if you're pressing only one button and only for one color.
So, what's the point of this?
Well, here's the point.
Okay.
When you have exactly the same task, I say to you, press when you see red. That's all you're doing. And if you're seated next to somebody else who is doing the same task except for the different color, each person responding to one color, each acting as if one of the fingers in the original Simon experiment, the reaction times increased on the incongruent trials. So simply the fact that someone else is sitting next to you will have an effect on your reaction times for this experiment. So the presence of the other person has some kind of effect on us. So here's a summary. With respect to embodiment, I pointed out that extraneural processing happens in the body, that posture, movement, physical fitness, inactive capabilities all have an effect upon experience and various aspects of cognition, including perception, attention, memory. And with respect to intersubjectivity, not only do I directly respond and interact with others, others have a significant effect on my perception and action. So I come now to my questions, which may be obvious, and you might have really very easy answers to them. So one question is, how important, this is about intersubjectivity and meditation then. How important is belonging to a community for meditation practices? How is meditation different when others are practicing it with you, when you're practicing together? Is there something like a shared meditation? And when you're learning to meditate, is it a learning that happens through imitation? Or is it by observation? Or by practicing together? Or by following instructions? Or something else? What is that learning process? In working with a teacher, how does shared attention to specific meditation practices become something other than shared attention? Does it get transformed into individual attention? And what kind of changes, what's lost or what's gained when this happens, when it ceases to be a shared attention? And with respect to embodiment and meditation, phenomenological analyses of normal movement and action suggests that in habitual and practiced bodily movement, one is not usually aware of what one is doing with their body. It happens sort of automatically almost. And when we become too aware of what our body is doing, that interferes with performance. So in sports, for example, in playing tennis, if we become too aware, if we pay too much attention to our body, then our performance in tennis gets worse. So the question about meditation is, does proficiency in meditation involve body consciousness? A focus, for example, on the body or bodily processes like breathing? Or does it involve an ability to move beyond awareness of the body? So how much am I aware of my body during meditation when I become an expert meditator? How is meditation different when one is in different body positions or postures? Is sitting meditation different from walking meditation? And is the difference directly tied to the particular posture or movement of the body? How does the external environment enhance meditation or mindfulness? Thank you.
You may want to go back to the first set of questions, because there was this whole series of questions now, and I would like to sort of come back to the first set of questions which have to do with intersubjectivity and meditation, which I think is a very important idea, that obviously the community plays an important role when you begin meditation or have a sense of a belonging. And so I'd like to address this question directly to you, Your Holiness.
So today the zaning are the mune when the choosing to catch more is shed in the other.
So this is definitely an important point. For example, for the monastics, whether you live as part of a monastic community or whether you live alone in a town, has a big different effect on the overall state of mind and well-being of this monk. And therefore, in the Buddhist tradition, there is an emphasis placed upon the need to have fellow kind of practitioners with whom you can share a certain sense of values and outlook. So friends, the technical term used is "chöten you talk." How do you say that? Chöten. So the companions who share the same kind of outlook, view, and also behavior, conduct. So compatibility. However, for much more advanced meditators, someone who's engaging in serious, intensive practitioners, then the recommendation is to really live as a hermit, like a wounded animal, sort of hiding somewhere.
Completely independence from that.
Yeah, total independence from the community.
Nada milmasho. Nada milmaje.
The expression is not giving the rope from your nose to someone else. So what do you call those things that your animals have? It's not really ring.
Nose ring.
Nose ring. Yeah.
Nada so
So there's a rope that goes around it, normally for animals. So the expression is that you should, wrap it around your own neck.
So complete independence, not depend on other. Then you gain more strength. So
generally there is an expression in Tibetan where it says that there are situations where environment, because of its sanctity, blesses the practitioner, and also where situations where the practitioner kind of charges and blesses the environment. So there is a kind of a two-way interaction.
So that
So of course this is a religious idea coming from the Buddhist religious.
The blessings
because the word blessing has that connotation.
So the inza under digi mi shenji beno komjimbo ngone jigjigewe ina di nyindawliya komtewe ina paji komde sangya yongchore.
So this is from the Buddhist religious perspective. It is said that if you are meditating, on a location where nearby there is a truly experienced meditator, then the quality of your own meditation will be better, and the progress will be better.
So one could say,
Sean, his Holiness has actually invited me to speak. It's often easy, I think, for us in the West, especially living in one can say, a non-contemplative environment, to look upon meditation as almost meditation in a vat, isolated from everything else. So I don't want any of the theory and the religion and the institutions and the ritual. Just give me meditation all by itself. I just want the essence. So this disconnected notion of meditation, this is completely alien, I think, from every spiritual tradition in the world. And so in Buddhism, meditation, in authentic Buddhist practice, meditation is always embedded. It's embodied. And it's embodied, first of all, in ethics. And ethics is something we learn in social interaction. And we learn by emulation. We engage with, interact with people who are embodying ethics, even from early age. And then we learn to emulate it. We learn to emulate very early. And so in that regard, I think the community, interacting with the community, is absolutely essential. It's a foundation. And eventually, when you're mature enough, as His Holiness is saying, when you've really established foundation, then you can go off into complete solitude. But you're bringing it with you.
When
and the France le peilwa yongxin komja do handu jago peilgi wasdo. Right?
It says also that meditating in a place where great meditators have lived, if you are 1 month in that place, it's as much beneficial to be 1 year somewhere else. And it's also, of course, the blessing aspect, but also the inspiration. For instance, if you are in a cave or somewhere where a great practitioner has lived, sometimes there is the place where he stayed, where he cooked his tea, and everything is reminding you of the practice. It's a constant reminder and encouragement. And I noticed the difference. If you stay in a nice forest in Canada, the conditions are same in terms of seclusion, quietness, and so forth. But in the Himalayas, well, everywhere there's something reminding you of great practitioners who spend years and years in strong endeavor. It has a very powerful source of inspiration.
Is when you go off to the cave and do it by yourself, is the meditation itself qualitatively different? Does it feel different in some way?
His Holiness says that he has no experience of this.
Okay. There you go.
Just to come back, there was one term mentioned, and I would like to sort of frame that. It's called blessings. I mean, that obviously is something that has to do with inspiration, but is there maybe another idea that for a scientist could give him a framing that what does that actually mean?
Blessings are the basic. I don't know what is blessing. But often you see people come to because of that seek blessing. I always responded from the Buddhist viewpoint, blessing must come within.
From within.
From within. It is wrong to seek something in the name of blessing from other. Unscientific way.
It's unscientific.
From the Buddhist viewpoint.
But you said also...
So, but you say blessing, I don't know.
The Tibetan word for blessing is chinlap, which is composed of two words. The first refers to some kind of force, or sometimes also referred to a sense of majesty. And the second word is lap, which has a connotation of transformation. So the idea here is that there is some kind of interaction which then results in a true transformation. So that seems to capture the idea better than just simply the word blessing. Maybe.
He's also said that it has to come from inside.
No. Transformation
because the transformation has to come from within.
But the environment can I think you said also the environment can bless.
Definitely, yeah. But that's also one of the main reasons why people do go on pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And that's the basic idea behind it, yeah.
There's a phenomenon of people who go up into space, astronauts and cosmonauts. And they go up, hard-nosed scientists and physicists and so forth. And because of what they experience, just in terms of the vastness of space and being able to see the planet from that perspective, just the spatial environment, they seem to have a spiritual experience. And they come back very enthusiastic about a kind of spirituality, which they pursue in their own way then. But this happens over and over and over again, so it's documented that this has happened quite frequently. So that would be an example of the environment the new environment they're in a sense, blessing them or calling forth a spirituality.
His Holiness is wondering whether to characterize that change as spiritual may be right or wrong, maybe the correct or incorrect one. But one thing that is understandable is that normally when we are caught in our day-to-day life, living in the world, we tend to take things very seriously. We know we are stuck in a particular way of being, and whatever is in front of us, we take it to be real, really real. So there is this intensity and grasping. But when you have the experience of seeing the world from an outer space, it really creates a sense of proportion. Yes. And there is, in the Buddhist context, a notion of a mind as vast as space, expansive as space. So the person experiences that kind of vastness of perception and awareness. Then when seen from that perspective, since the world is just a tiny speck that you see, it really sets things and put things in perspective. So that is going to have definitely a radical shift in one's perception.
Yeah.
And also we can have, we can observe. So we, even from ordinary day-to-day experience, we can see the effect of the presence of others very powerfully. For example, if someone is generally very kind of in a very anxious mood and has a disposition of always complaining about things and making big things out of small things, then if he happens to share a little moment with someone who is much more relaxed and has a kind of a more take it easy kind of attitude, then that interaction has the immediate effect of dampening the intensity of the anxiety of this individual. So you can see how others affect one's experience and perception.
I think the very reason why we consider education is important. That means
so to expand our understanding and awareness.
Rupert, you wanted to add something?
I was just thinking about this. I was wondering if, in a way, within the Buddhist tradition, there's a certain tension between, in the context of intersubjectivity and the influence of the outside environment, in the sense that the influence of the outside environment and our social interaction with people can be both good and bad. And there is a way in which Buddhism is trying to undo, Buddhist meditation practice is trying to undo some of the conditioning of intersubjectivity in order to kind of stand back and reassess that. So maybe this is why it is important sometimes to go off and be a hermit, to be away from that, so that you can reassess it. And I was just thought I'd also mention one thing. At one point in a very famous Theravadan Buddhist text, the Visuddhimagga, it says that when you get to the stage of, it would be something like the 9th or 10th stage of shamatha in the Tibetan tradition. When you get to that stage, you have to be extremely careful about what sort of company you keep, who you talk to. Also, you need to be very careful about where you live. The weather can affect you, and what you eat can affect you in all sorts of very subtle ways.
It's not only for meditation, too. I believe it's in the text, the 37 Practices of the Bodhisattvas by Geshe Tomisambo, that it says when you're just starting out in practice, just beginning, go to a foreign place, a place where you don't have all the social interactions, where nobody knows you, you're a complete foreigner, and then you start all over again. And if you really want to start over again, then you change your name, you change your haircut, you change your clothing, you adopt an entirely different way of life with an entirely different group of people. And you become a homeless one, kimbaba. And so you're really trying to, exactly as you're saying, in a way you're trying to wipe clean the slate of all your mundane conditioning and start afresh with a whole new set of ideals and way of life. And when you're well acculturated into that, into the Sangha, then as His Holiness said, once again, now that you are well acculturated, now you may go off into solitude.
Yes, please.
So, Your Holiness, this just brings up a conflict or a confusion in my mind of why this would be the way that we would want to train people. At the same time that it makes sense for the practitioner that as he, in this case, or she, hopefully, becomes more and more adept, may become more and more sensitive, and may actually need to leave the community in order to advance their own practice. But at the same time, the community may actually need the presence of that kind of person even more. So how do you reconcile these two views of the individual's path and the need of the others?
탐지기가 기주주가 남자들이 기주주 창진 예수자네 공견 주어다 학교에서 먹고 싶어서 두 정도와 저 그런 또 어때 기회래 이거 뒤를 단지这是么配这是么配不对那是什么配这是么不差到이거 유로도 정도와 지금 현재 년만 지고 그러고 나랑 냠는 시야지 러 단지게 되 용인다 또
Of course, so here, of course, it's a matter of, again, this question of weighing the situation, pros and cons, and doing the most appropriate and right thing to do. And in a given situation, His Holiness was saying that this reminds him of the biography of the first Dalai Lama, Ginten Trub, who lived quite long, and at one point he spent quite a lot of time in solitude meditation in Nangchen, Changchen retreat. And he had very profound, deep spiritual realizations, including some visionary experiences and so on. But later, he moved down to Shigatse and started laying the foundations from Tashilumbu Monastery, which was a major enterprise where he had to take personal charge of, deputing people to raise funds for the monastery, supervising the actual construction, and at the same time giving classes, academic classes to the young students and so on. He had to juggle many responsibilities together. And it seems that occasionally when there were some conflicts within the monastery, which he couldn't calm down, he would sometimes tell the people that, look, if you are not going to listen to me, you have to remember I gave up my chance of being a single-pointed hermit practitioner, and I came down here to lay the foundation, and help you for the community. You have to, be grateful for what you have done. So he sort of did all of this while being old and walking around with a stick.
Now here, again, maybe it's irrelevant, right?
Irrelevant,
irrelevant.
Not relevant.
Because I feel the promotion of moral, secular ethics through normal education way. Why? Unless the society, majority of the society, or generally, is a more compassionate society develop, then very difficult. You see, the person who come from a society where not much talking about compassion, value these things, just money, power. And I think ability to cheat other people, then maybe you see people praise, just because of able person, right?
No.
From such society, then leadership come. We cannot, it is unfair to blame those individual leaders who are doing something strange, because they themselves come from that society. Unless the society or family is the more positive atmosphere and talking more about deeper value, then I think leadership come from that society will be different. So therefore, I think environment is, very, very important. Here, I think some you see looks to see genuine practitioner when they are inside Tibet or in the monastery.
In the monastery.
And eventually seek to American dollar, go to the West, then completely changes the person. So it's the environment, you see, it really makes differences. I think our purpose is not produce one individual, nice person. Our basic aim is how to bring, the awareness of importance of these inner value to the society. Not talking about religion, not talking about 가서다. 지난 여러분은 그 지금 가가로서 와. 디케스 맞다. 지속으로 야우슈가지.
여러분 같아서.
아다 가서르나 가서르. 여러분은 아주 야우샤리스. 라. 저는 리조트가 모럴스도 있나? 어디 모럴 재미있나? 왜 야우샤리 민문에다 왜 그쇼 왜 그랬어요? 그 지소는 고기밖에 시스템이었어.
So our ultimate aim should not be to really bring spirituality or religion into the community, but our aim is to really find a way of bringing a basic transformation within the society, create a society where there is a deeper appreciation and discourse on these fundamental values such as compassion and so on, so that we can move away from the current status quo where people do pay lip service to moral ideas. Say, so-and-so is a very ethical and moral person. But we leave it as an object of admiration, but somehow feel that it's not relevant in the real world. So we want ethics, secular ethics, to be made part and parcel of the real world, so that it has a real effect.
그래서 environment is big as
So environment has a very important effect. It becomes very important.
So I want to take this as a thought to take into the break, and maybe we come back with new ideas how to really engage secular ethics in our environment. So thank you for the break.